What's up? Hey everyone, welcome to another Wisecrack Live. I'm Michael Burns, joined as always by producer Matt. Producer Matt, how are you doing?
I'm good. Pretty good today. How are
Okay,
you doing?
solid. I'm doing solid. Everyone remind us later in the show we need to let producer Matt plug a cool new project he's working on. So everyone let us, just keep us reminded about that. And hey to everyone in the chat, what's up, dude? Abides, Vox Podcast, Corey said Wisecrack live is the best time of the week. That's very sweet. Tony, what's up? Nathanatos, hello. Balint, hello. We're saying hello from Greece. And near Greece, Stephen is in Connecticut. Connecticut is the Greece of the Northeast, is what I always say. 40-year-old geek says, "Hey there, folks. Hi. We got some highs. We got some yo's. Good to digitally see everyone." So last time we were here, if you weren't here last week, it was very eventful. I had bad audio for half of it. I gaslit many of you when you tried to tell me something was wrong with my audio, and then you were right. So again, apologies for that. We had our friend Helen here last time. That was fun. Dude abides, 5-year fan, 1-month member. We appreciate it so much. And PS4 customers here, howdy, good to see you. A couple of things just as we get going. Paul, thanks for coming back. Really appreciate it. South Africa shout out to Central New York. Always wanted to go to Central and Upstate New York and never have. Okay, so what's going on the channel? We did a video on Guy Fieri last week, Matt. No one watched it. And,
I watched.
uh,
I'm like putting it together for TikTok right now, and I think it's a
yeah.
great video. I think that is the kind of stuff that I would watch personally, of just like
Yeah.
why would we, why not?
Yeah, no, for sure. We got a hey from France. Bonjour. And then we're getting a small echo and a lot of keyboard clicks. Matt, is your mic hot? Everyone, I'll let you behind the scenes right there with our chat. Guillermo, what's up from Ohio? Ohio, the Greece of the Eastern Midwest. But yeah, so I'm glad that Matt liked the Guy Fieri video. My theory is that Guy Fieri, and Dude Abides liked it too, I appreciate that, is just a very American phenomenon. And as we can see from the chat, and I think this is great, we have an international audience. And I just imagine if you're in like Greece, France, South Africa, you're just like, who the fuck is the loud man with the glasses that are backwards on his head and the frosted tips? So, I think that kind of is what it is. But we had fun making it. I'm a big Fieri head, so
Do you think
that was
that
fun. I did it.
we're like 6 to 8 years a little late on it? Like I feel like because cable TV is
Yeah,
not, it's not in its prime anymore. I think that he's sort of on his way out of like the cultural conversation.
I think you're totally right. Also, Moises says, I think it'll do good on the TikTok. They love the Fieri. That's good to know.
It's not doing
So,
terrible. It's not doing great. It's not doing
okay.
terrible.
Well, Matt's fault then. Corey said, I love the episode. I think Old Food Network is so interesting. The Iron Chef matchup, of Morty Morrow, Bobby Flay spurred the culinary entertainment industry. Sad you didn't mention that. I know you only put so much in. Iron Chef is restarting on Netflix. I'm very excited about that. They're doing a new Iron Chef series. Vox Podcast says, yeah, he's an American phenomenon, super controversial over here. There's people who hate him, but those people are wrong. The video is good. Thank you. Yeah, but I think you're right as well, Matt, that like, Fieri's been on TV for a very long time and has gone through so many cycles of like love and hatred that, yeah. But one thing, it's one of those videos, so this happens sometimes. Again, I like talking about sort of the way we think of the channel with you all. It's just an interesting one because it's a video that numbers wise didn't do well, but then in like the comments and feedback, people that watched it liked it. Whereas sometimes we do a video that does really big numbers, and then you'll have comments that are just like, you guys should die for making this. So it's a very fun contradiction sometimes between those two things.
I wonder if
Let's,
Guy Fieri will make a comeback in the next 6 to 8 years, because he doesn't seem like
and
a
it'll be,
bad person.
no, I think he's a great person by many metrics. Cody said he could tell I was a big fan of Fieri because of my pronunciation of his name. I did appreciate that. One person in an early comment said something like, why is Michael pronouncing his name so weird? And then someone else stepped in to be like, he's actually pronouncing it correctly. And I appreciate that. Corey Armstrong said Guy Fieri is the Nickelback of culinary
I would
personalities.
argue he's the Smash Mouth one, but that's a nuance.
Yeah. I have a weird association with Nickelback because I kind of got bullied, but it was kind of my fault in high school about Nickelback because I had the gall to make a smart crack, a wisecrack, one might say, boo, at a cool football player guy who I was in class with who had a Nickelback shirt because he'd been to the Nickelback concert the night before. And I think I just said something like, I can't believe anyone listens to that terrible music. And he turned around and just kind of gave me the vibe of like, you know, I could murder you, right? Um, so yeah, that was also the first person I knew in high school. This is too much. I'm about to say something that's too much. First person I knew that acknowledged having had sex. So,
Nice.
you know, mythical
Milestone.
figure at Oviedo High School. I'm not going to say his name. I want to say his name, but I'm not going to dox the high school football player who both almost beat me up because I said Nickelback was bad and was the first person who ever talked about having sex. Um,
Well, let me ask you this: if you went to a high school reunion, would you bring it up? Because I had a friend whose mom went
um,
to her 50th high school reunion, and someone came up to her and was like, "I'm so sorry that I broke up with you the way that I did. I've been holding on to that for 5 decades."
wow. If I so I did not go to what reunion happened? There was like a 10-year high school reunion that happened and some of my friends went to it and I absolutely did not go to. I had no desire to go. Still felt too soon. I don't know about you all in the chat. I did not enjoy. I didn't like high school very much. It wasn't a great time for me. Um, yeah, I don't think I would say something like that. I don't know. There would be something kind of funny about going to a high school reunion, and this is mean of me to say. I'm going to say a mean thing, but like seeing someone who was kind of mean and cool in high school, if their life had just fallen apart, I would probably get a sick satisfaction out of that. But then I would feel bad for having that satisfaction, so it would still come back negatively on me. You know?
Yeah, I don't like where does that. I get what you're saying. Like, where does that kind of vengeance? Like, where does that have to?
Yeah.
Where does that live in us? And how did it evolve in
Yeah.
us? You know?
Yeah, and I don't. It's gonna sound like I'm trying to act like a better person than I am, but I just have too much baseline empathy to ever be that mean. Even if it's someone who is like a bad person in high school, if their life has fallen apart, I still would just feel bad for them because I'd be like, oh, where did it go wrong? What happened? So yeah, Vox said, my 30th is this year, and every time I see a Facebook invite for it, I go, are you people fucking kidding me? I didn't even like you then. Yeah, and someone said that's their personal hell. It's yeah, it's a weird. I think for high school reunions, it's like if that was the best time of your life, why not go back? But I'm friends with like one person I went to high school with. So if I went back, I would just feel really uncomfortable. And then, because I used to have really long hair and now I'm a bald man, people might be like, oh, remember when you had that long blonde hair in high school? And I'd be like, yeah, I do. What do you want me to say? Um,
And there's also probably
although I
something too that's like the last time a lot of people were around the same group of people for longer than like,
Yeah,
a day job.
yeah. Although I did, so my 20th will be coming up. I did have the idea of doing a bit. So because I don't live where I went to high school. I haven't lived there since high school. I don't interact with a lot of people on social media. Part of me thought it'd be fun to wear like a priest outfit, like the full-on thing, and like on my name tag put like Father Michael, and then
That's
go and get like really drunk and ask people if they want to do like blow with me in the bathroom
so you
and
just give
just
them the
create
greatest
a
story.
yeah, just like create like a performative scene where it's like, holy shit, Michael Burns came back and he's a priest now, but he was like really messed up and kept asking everyone to do cocaine in the bathroom. To be clear, it wouldn't be real cocaine. I would bring a fake cocaine type thing or something. Oh, it'd just be kind of fun. Guillermo said, I'll go to the 20 or 30 year when time is really passing, give people a chance to grow. Yeah, 10 years is too soon. And I know some people who've done a 5-year high school reunion. Are you kidding me? You're 23. You're still
Yeah, that's just like a
ostensibly the
hangout.
same. Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. Speaking of reunions and getting together with people who share your interest, just a reminder, Wisecrack's Patreon. If you want to do that, we do have a Patreon. I think some of the people who are in the chat are on it. We have a few levels. We do some extra content. We have a show called Behind the Crack where Amelia Bazell, one of our lovely colleagues, interviews people about the videos. So it sort of goes a little bit deeper into the videos we make. The most recent episode of Behind the Crack was about Guy Fieri. We also have a series called Wisecrack Office Hours where I dive deeper into the philosophy behind our videos, answer questions, stuff like that. We also have a Discord server where you can hang out and talk to people with similar interest about things you like. So, check that out. Producer Matt will drop a link in the chat. It's also a great way to support us if you have the means. If you do not have the means, don't worry. It's fine. But a nice way to support us. And like I've said before, the more we can grow the Patreon, the less dependent we are on the fragility of the YouTube algorithm, which is good for us. Christopher said, while high school sucked, being a largely unsupervised teen with a car, I bought and insured myself with a job. Wow, went on a 3-month camping trip and told no one. That's very cool. Yeah, I do think some of the freedom from high school was fun. PS4 customer said the Fieri video changed my perspective on him. He's down to earth compared to every other chef who takes himself too seriously. Another chef I compare him to is Action Bronson. Yeah, Action Bronson and Fieri are like two sides of a certain coin. And on an old episode of Action Bronson's show, Fuck That Delicious, he did like a bit where he dressed up like Guy Fieri and drove around in a Camaro convertible, which was cool. But yeah, and I would say the thing about Fieri that I just thought was really cool as well, he's someone that's never been overt about his political or social beliefs, but he like does things. Whether that's taking a bunch of his own time and resources to feed people affected by wildfires and firefighters, whether it's raising millions of dollars for out of work restaurant employees during the pandemic, or whether it's even, and I'll just say this, people read into this how you want, but starting in around 2016, Guy Fieri started featuring a lot of restaurants on his show that were primarily run by different immigrant communities in America, featuring all types of like unique cuisine, often businesses run by like women and people of color. And, Guy doesn't say stuff about his politics, but at that time in history, that's what he did. GD Nimrod said, "Hey, how are you? I'm good." Marty D brought up Maddie Matheson. Yeah, Maddie Matheson is another like hyperbolic online chef, so you can watch that show. Philip said, not related. I want to know how will philosophy improve life? Is improving one's life related with philosophy? We'll talk about this real quick. In the classic Greek tradition, philosophy is about living a good life, but a good life doesn't necessarily mean like a pleasurable life always. It's about living a life that's true. I always think about the Socratic imperative to live an examined life. And I think the point of incorporating philosophy into one's own life is to live a life of examination where you think about why you're doing what you're doing. And while things might not always make you happier, you at least have knowledge and are seeking out the truth of the way the world really is rather than just sucking down the ideology that the world gives you. But that's just my thought. GD Nimrod brought up Everything Everywhere All at Once. It blew my mind too. So, okay, let me say this. Some of you have asked about this. When are we going to cover Everything Everywhere All at Once? We recorded the video yesterday. So that has happened. A video on Everything Everywhere All at Once has been recorded. I think it's going to come out like the day that the movie is digitally available as well. So that exists. Our Everything Everywhere All at Once video exists. I saw it for a second time last week. Matt, you've seen that movie, right?
I have. I want to see it a second time. I just don't know. I don't know if I'm ready to watch it a second time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm going to be very honest with you all. I kind of lost it the second time I saw it emotionally. I'm an emotional guy. And I would say that what's interesting when you see it a second time, and I'm curious if anyone else had this sort of experience as well if you saw it twice. The first time, it's easy to be so overwhelmed by the visuals, by the whole notion of the multiverse, by trying to keep up with like, wait, who is this? What's happening? When you see it a second time, you already know that stuff, so you really can dig in on the emotional beats of the story. And my God, anyone who's, I guess anyone could be moved by that. But I just imagine for a lot of people, like, depending on your relationship with your family or your parents or whatever, like, man, there's a lot going on there. I also found in researching for the video we did on it, I thought this was really cool. So Daniel Kwan, one of the Daniels that made the film, he a few years ago when they were making the film got late in life diagnosed with adult ADHD, and he said for him working on the movie was in a way like exploring what a lot of his life has felt like with ADHD. And I'm just going to assume demographically that a chunk of people that watch Wisecrack stuff are people that have ADHD. And I think that if you have that, it is like an interesting thing to then think about the movie in that context because it involves so much jumping around, can't stick an idea, excited about this, moving around. So I thought that was really cool to learn as well.
Wasn't it like there were 7 VFX artists that worked on that whole movie? 7. I mean,
And they did it on like Premiere.
that is, I think if you aren't like if you just don't know anything about VFX, I think that might sound a little strange, but like I worked on The Lion King, that live action one that came out, and there were teams of people across the world working on that. Like maybe
Yeah.
close to 100 if not 200.
Well, I mean, like, I mean, for example, like, stay at, when you stay and watch the credits of like a Marvel movie or something, like, look at how many names are on that screen for VFX. It is like hundreds of people,
Yeah.
different teams in different countries around the world. So I don't know, man. I think Everything Ever All at Once really shows us that you don't need an MCU type Disney funded budget to make something really incredible. And I will take the sort of like action and visuals of that movie over the CGI heavy superhero vibe any day of the week. Just any day of the week.
I think there
So
was a lot of practical stuff going on in that as well. I have to
yes,
watch to like really know what it is, but that stuff
yeah,
just ages so much better.
it does, and it helps that we have some people in the movie that are people that have been very involved in Hong Kong cinema and just like are good at that stuff. Like Michelle Yeoh, I mean, she has been doing it for years. She's incredible. So just having people like that in a movie is just effing amazing. Let's see. GD Nimrod also asked about determinism and devs. I actually haven't watched devs. It's a thing I've been wanting to watch for a while. There's too many shows. I've not watched devs. And GD Nimrod, I think you will like the Everything Ever All at Once video because we do talk about determinism a little bit. Because I think that's one of the things explored there is the tension between how much of our future is determined and how much isn't. I also finally hung out with someone last night who doesn't like Everything Everywhere All at Once, which was good to see. There's a certain type of person who doesn't like it, and it's interesting to me that there's some people who really don't like it.
What
Um,
was their main
so yeah,
criticism?
I think for some folks it's just a matter of they see it as potentially a little bit like faux philosophical and overly sentimental.
That
And
person,
I will,
I'm going to take a guess and say they're probably fairly well adjusted.
yeah, the person I talked to, great person. Someone who is involved in the writing and production of really cool TV shows, and who, is someone who's more interested in like the crime and horror dramas. I think, and someone who has a penchant for or doesn't have a penchant for like tweeness, you know. Whereas I'm someone who likes sentimental things and enjoys movies that appeal to emotion. So, GD Nimrod also said, "Do you confirm that in the end we have an absurdism versus nihilism, mother versus daughter?" Yeah. So, what we talk about in the video that'll come out next week, the week after, is the kind of tension between absurdism, nihilism, and existentialism in the film. I'm not going to tell you, what we came down to on that because, yeah. Um, Someone brought up covering Dragon Ball Z. Yeah, I think that's worth it. Oh, so you someone wrote an essay on absurdism. That's great. Um, let's see. Yeah, well, Guillermo, all I'll say is I no negative feelings at all. We all love Jared and hope he's doing very well. Um, let's see. Sorry, just catching up. Okay, GD Nimrod is mad that I haven't watched Devs. I'm going to do it soon. Christopher Pierce brought up Love, Death, and Robot season 3. I haven't watched that yet. Said it was really weird and good. Got some more love for Everything Ever All at Once. Moises says Men was awful. I did not see that yet. Although, oh, you spoiled it. But okay. So even though Moises spoiled that movie, which you shouldn't do. Um, I think that, and we have a video about this on Wisecrack. If a movie is good, you can't spoil it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it can't be spoiled if it's good,
Yeah, I get
because
that.
it, yeah, because if you can ruin something with a spoiler, it means it's only interesting because of a gimmick. Um, and I don't know. So that's what I think there. Um, but yeah, and then Corey said, "Why do people like myself enjoy shitty movies, Moonfall, Morbius, etc.?" I think Moonfall is fun and how dumb it is. I think sometimes bad movies are fun because they don't take themselves too seriously and they allow us to revel in the absurdity of the world around us. I don't know. Do you have any bad movies you like, Matt?
Um, that movie, oh God, it was like the rom com with J Lo and Owen Wilson that just came out.
Oh,
Mary,
Marry
yeah,
Me.
yeah. It wasn't like I wouldn't put it on. And this is someone I love rom coms. I think I
Oh,
miss that genre, but that movie just like didn't really hit the rom com, like didn't scratch the rom com itch for me. But I think because I
yeah,
saw it with a bunch of friends and we kind of made a night out of it, I think it was great. It was a lot of fun, and it was fun to just sort of like
yeah,
rag on it a little bit. But at the end of the day,
yeah,
they don't really ask for that much.
yeah. I mean, there's always been entertainment that's not trying to be taken too seriously or whatever it is. So there you go. Corey brought up Titan. Corey, if you talk about not being sure what Titan means, we do have a video about Titan on the channel. We took a real flyer on making that video, but yeah, check it out. And Nathanato says people enjoy movies better after being spoiled, even if they say they don't like spoilers. Yeah, because once again, like if it's a good story, when a movie's good, a book is good, we listen to it and watch it and read it again and again because the story is good and the emotional stuff is compelling. I saw, to go back to Everything Ever All at Once, I saw the movie for a second time and probably enjoyed it more because it's so good. It didn't matter that I already knew the stuff. So yeah, let's see. A lot of good questions. So we're gonna watch some stuff today. Oh yeah, Vox Popcast says I'll talk about this. I think Sixth Sense is downright unwatchable if you know the twist. This is my problem with M Night Shyamalan movies is that once you know the twist, in some of those movies at least, like Sixth Sense and like The Village, the movie sucks because the whole movie is just like a giant misdirect.
I think the
And
idea of a twist is so like early 2000s, like that kind of
yeah,
built-in thing to it. I
yeah.
don't know. Do movies have twists these days? Like do shows have twists?
I think sometimes they do. I just don't watch stuff that does because it just kind of feels very cheap, and it feels like it's treating me like I'm stupid. Whereas I feel like some bad movies, like Moonfall, isn't trying to be smart, so it's not treating me like an idiot. But a movie that does a little twist is sort of like treats me like an idiot, and I really don't like to be treated like an idiot, except by the people who I know love me. Corey said he didn't see it. Yeah, I think the algorithm might have buried it, bud. So go check it out. Vox Popcast says, I know people will never sit through everything everywhere because they're not looking for a compelling narrative so much as a spectacle of Spider-Man. I totally get that. Um, let's see. Someone talked about doing something on Mad Men. It'd be fun to do something on Mad Men, but it's just so far after the fact. Ooh, and H.G. Fields watches True Detective once a year. True Detective season 1 is just like all time. So let's watch some stuff. We'll watch a few things today. I wanted to start. So we just talked about why Everything Everywhere All at Once is great and better than a lot of, superhero movies. So let's watch the Thor trailer that came out 2 days ago. I
I have
actually
never seen
haven't
this.
watched. Yeah, I haven't watched the new full Thor trailer yet for Love and Thunder. I thought it'd be fun to, just save it for this. So, um, let's do it. GD Nimrod, we can talk about determinism in a little bit. So, but I'm glad you're asking that. So yeah, let's watch this. Do we have the screen up yet?
Yep.
Oh, awesome. So let's check out and I'll say this before we start this. I'm in general getting pretty burned out on the MCU. The current phase, I'm not having the best time with it. I'm genuinely excited about the Thor movie. I think Taika Waititi is kind of brilliant. I have faith he'll do something cool with this, even if it's weird. So let's see. Oh, and Mikal said, I really like Mike Lee's films very, very, very much. Ooh, Alonzo, though, said Taika Waititi ruined Thor
That's
for
talk
him.
about a
What a
hot
take.
take.
What a
That's a hot
hot
take.
take. Wow.
I saw
That's very
someone
interesting.
somewhere. We can talk about this afterwards, but someone there's probably like a TikTok reference that they were like they were calling it now. Taika is the same thing that happened to Lin Manuel after Hamilton is going to happen to Taika, or it's happening in the moment
Ooh.
of just like over commercializing all of his stuff. And I
Yeah.
can't say I disagree.
We'll have to see. I'll say this too, because Cody Harris that was burned out 3 years ago on MCU stuff. I totally get that. If I was running Marvel, I would never get that job. What I would have done is after Endgame, I would have taken 5 years, and I would have
Yeah,
not put any movies out. I would have not made any public statements, whatever. I would have just done that, and then I would have found a way to slowly get back into it. But I would have really waited and had the patience. And then to be clear, Disney probably wouldn't let them do that. And then maybe would do some television, would really double down on the comic side of things. But I would really just like wait. But instead, it was that Asandra, we're not all smarter than you. This is not true. Okay, so let's start watching this, but we'll talk about it throughout. So, just classic Lion King looking shot.
Kids, get your popcorn now. Let me tell you the story of the space Viking, Thor Odinson. He was no ordinary man. He was a god. After saving planet Earth for the 500th time, Thor set off on a new journey.
I just got to note this comment. Christopher Pierce said they would have ended at Infinity War. That ending was so good. I mean, that would have been amazing if they just stopped it at Infinity War and then came back years
yeah.
later. Well, okay, so because I think it's like 5 years
Yeah, I think it's
between, right,
5.
the end of Infinity. They should have just taken 5 years. They should have just let those 5 years pass, then dropped Endgame. That would have been fucking rad.
I think
But
Infinity War was the last Marvel movie, or it was the Marvel movie that I was like, oh, I actually want to watch. Like, I think I watched all 22 movies before Endgame, where I was like,
yeah.
oh, I'm invested in this. But
Mm-hmm.
Corey Armstrong in the chat says that people forget that Marvel had a long break. I think that was also the pandemic too, between
Yeah.
Far
So I
From
think it
Home and
makes
Black
it,
Widow.
yeah. I get what you're saying, Corey. Yeah, I think that's the problem is because it was also the pandemic, it like
Didn't feel like a break.
didn't feel like that. And also too, the weird thing was like, so the break ends with Black Widow. So we're jumping back to a thing that took place before all the stuff. It was just a little, that movie didn't need to exist. I'll say it. It didn't need to exist. Maybe that should have been a Disney Plus original. Okay, we got 18 seconds in. Let's see go. So Thor is working out in
He
front of a
got in
skeleton.
shape. He went from dead bod to god bod. And after all that, he reclaimed his title as the one and only Thor.
Okay, so this is obviously the big reveal that Jane's back. Do we think, and maybe this comes up in the trailer, is that his Jane Foster? Is it a multiversal Jane Foster? Do we have any
That
thoughts on
is
that?
the Pandora's box of doing this multiverse stuff. Who's to say?
Yeah.
It's sort of like I think someone said this in the last video, or maybe this was another thing, but Endgame was the ultimate stakes, right? So
Yeah.
now it's kind of like the stakes are kind of gone. There's no I
Yeah.
don't feel any sort of pressure for any of these characters.
Yeah, and the way they're using the multiverse kind of alleviates stakes because then we can just pull from it. I mean, it's like an opposite of kind of like everything ever all at once's use of the multiverse. But if we can just pluck whoever from wherever, it like doesn't feel real when people die. So I think I'll be curious to see which Jane this is. I'm like kind of excited that Natalie Portman's back because she kind of just vanished, and Natalie Portman in general is like a solid actor. So I don't know.
Oh, spoke too soon.
Jane? The old ex-girlfriend.
What's it been like 3, 4 years?
8 years.
Okay, so that implies what's it been 3, 4 years that it's his Jane. So, yeah, Vox says it'll be her multiverse in her would cheapen things too much for the MCU faithful. They're gonna do her comic origin. Okay, yeah, we do believe it's 616. I I don't know her comic origin, to be honest, so I'll be curious to see what that is. But you could spoil it because you can't spoil something, so go for it.
7 months and 6 days, give or take.
Am I sensing feelings?
Fun fact, so Tessa Thompson plays Valkyrie. I'm not going to blow up the spot. There is a bar that I love in Los Angeles, and every other time I've been there, Tessa Thompson has been there. And I will just say that it's a cool bar, so it's cool that she hangs out there, and she seems like a very mellow, cool person, and is always hanging out with just like weird looking people, not like cool Hollywood people, just like weirdos. And actually, we went to that bar for my bachelor party, and we were adjacent to the table with like Tessa Thompson and her friends. And because I'm kind of a calm person, some of my friends who had had a few were like, we gotta get a picture with Michael and Tessa Thompson. And I huddled them up and was like, I will fucking kill you.
Pull
like,
it together, guys.
Yeah, I was like, this is my bachelor party. What would make me happy is if we let Tessa Thompson enjoy her life in peace and didn't turn this bar into a place where she has to worry about like a bunch of nerdy bros being like, oh, can we get a picture right now? But either way, I think that's cool. But Corey, you're right. We do need a collab.
Yeah, you're right.
The only ones who gods care about.
Okay, so we're about to meet our villain. That's exciting. Of course, this brings up the constant thing of the MCU's villain problem. They have bad villains.
But also, what are these villains doing when they're not in their movie? You know, like Thanos was teased sort of for a decade, but it's like
Yeah, especially with the stakes of Infinity War and Endgame, all this stuff is happening cosmically, and there's all these other god level bad guys who are just hanging. I don't know. Yeah. Wait, I want to see this. So Vox Podcast says, this is the origin of Jane becoming Thor Jane. She happens to be worthy, so takes the hammer and becomes a female version of Thor. She's also fighting cancer because pathos. Oh boy. Let's see. Alonzo says, I'm not a fan of how Waititi treats Thor. The Russo brothers made the best version of Thor in Infinity War. And that's true. The version of Thor in Infinity War absolutely fucking rips. Okay, so let's see who this bad guy is. We know, of course, it's going to be Christian Bale.
Is themselves.
Right? Ugh, that's scary. I don't like that. I don't know why I paused on it because I don't want anyone else to see it. That's the stuff of nightmares right there.
Is this in grayscale
really upset.
or is this just the lighting?
I don't know. That's upsetting. That's really upsetting. Let's see.
This is my vow.
All gods will die.
Oh, so that's. So, question. I mean, this is gonna be the boring thing. Now I'm gonna say, does this mean we're gonna end up in some position where we have a Wisecrack meeting and we have to talk about like killing God and Nietzsche and other stuff, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, Joan Jobs in the chat said Christian Pale. That might be this week's throat share right there. Christian Pale. Rian King says, what's scary about it? What's scary about it is that I'm a coward sometimes and don't like
you don't like scary stuff.
Spooky. I don't it's a well-known fact about me. I don't like spooky things. Balin says, get Blade in there now. I am excited about Blade. That's gonna be awesome. Ooh, the 40-year-old geek says, Christian Frail. So much fun. So much fun. Let's get back to this.
I just want to say that was very, very impressive what you did back there.
He's just my first bad guy.
You never forget your first.
In gods we trust. Okay.
You are not like the other gods of kill.
Because I have something worth fighting for.
I'm excited.
Do we think?
I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm much more excited about this than I am. Let me think. Yeah, I'm more excited about this than I've been about any Marvel movie since Endgame. Easily. easily.
I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to have some interesting stuff to think about, but I think it's going to be fun most of all.
Yeah. Someone said the sword is Christian Nail. But yeah, I mean, like, Hemsworth is good on screen. He's just like he's a charming character. Tessa Thompson is great. Like, she's just like a good, awesome actor. Natalie Portman can be pretty good. Christian Bale, that's a real actor. That's, you know what I mean? Christian Bale's he's a real actor.
I hear what
So-
Alonso is saying about what Taika did with this Thor, but I think what Taika did that I like what he did is Chris Hemsworth is funny. He's like a good comic actor. He happens to be beautiful as well, but I think he really he uses Chris Hemsworth humor for the character really well.
Yeah. Ooh, Vox Podcast let us know there's an end stinger to the trailer, so we gotta keep going a little more. Let's see. Cody Ayer said, "Is there an academic term for people needing to have something bigger than themselves to look up to?" I don't know, Cody. I always think of like people get mad, people hate Freud, but I do think about the Freudian Lacanian desire for some sort of big other that we have psychologically, in the way in which humanity is, whether it's been like the figure of the father or the cosmic father, that we feel a need to have some type of structure outside of ourselves. There's a lot of different ways to think of it, but yeah.
Let's see who you are. I take off your disguise.
Who's that?
Is that Russell Crowe?
I think so.
And flick.
Shit.
Oh,
You flick too hard, damn it!
Should we help?
Was the thought there that his penis is so big that it made everyone pass out? I'm not trying to be silly, but I think that was the implication, that his penis made everyone pass out. Oh, Dominic said, "You think Thompson is good?" Damn. Okay. I think Tessa Thompson's a good actor.
Yeah, I think she's great. I think she's done a lot more Marvel stuff than, like, I like her and her stuff and stuff that's not Marvel, but
Yeah, and I think that's what. And Dominic, I think that would be my point there. That I definitely lean more towards. When I say Tessa Thompson's good, I mean she's a good actor in general. I'm not necessarily saying she's at peak form in the MCU. And this, to get back to Vox Podcast, made a great point that Vox says Portman's an amazing actor, but she phoned it in for her 2 previous movies because she knew they weren't really good. Yeah, and I think that's the point. I think in a lot of these Marvel movies, the actors like live up to the material. And if they think it's kind of dumb, they just want to get their paycheck. They hang out in Atlanta for 3 months. They stand in front of green screens. They maybe eat some nice Southern food afterwards and they get back to it. I think that when they get good material, they maybe show up a little bit more. Corey says she's great and Sorry to Bother You. She's great and Sorry to Bother You. Let's see. Oh, a lot of things. Okay, cool. Let's see. We've got a few more seconds here.
Then eventually, great.
July 8th. Oops, I didn't mean to restart it. Cool. Well, there you go. That was. Ooh, is this gonna start playing? How do I pause it? You paused it. Thor trailer. So wait, I'm just curious. I feel like we're kind of split in the chat. GD Nimrod said, "Damn, this movie is extra cheesy." I do think that's part of it, right? That Waititi is leaning into cheesiness. But maybe there's a way in which it can be argued that there is a sense in which the leaning into the cheesiness becomes like too much. It's like leaning into being corny to avoid being corny, but then maybe that ends up being cornier.
I think it's also
If that makes
like
sense.
I think it's hard to comprehend the scale of the audience of these movies, and that in order to make something that appeals to almost 1 billion people is like, how do you do that? How do you negotiate with that?
Yeah. And I think too, it's a matter of expectation. I don't think anyone can expect much more from the MCU these days than like, they're going to make a shit ton of movies. They just are. They're going to get cranked out like they're on an assembly line. And a lot of them are going to be bad, just objectively bad movies. Some of them are going to be okay. And I think the best we can hope for is that there are some movies in there where people try to do interesting things. Someone made this point, I think it was on the Discord. So again, Wisecrack Patreon, we got a Discord. We have fun chats on there. But someone on the Discord pointed out all of the ex Rick and Morty writers who are now involved in the MCU in various ways. Krishna Kant said Wisecrack is awesome. We appreciate it. You're awesome. But we did. Someone pointed out all the ex Rick and Morty and sort of like Dan Harmon universe writers who are working on MCU projects. Off the top of my head, like Michael Waldron. I'm not going to remember all the names. That does make me feel good, because I think that a lot of those writers that come out of that Rick and Morty world, they're smart, they're funny, and I don't think they want to make bullshit. The question is, will Kevin Feige and the Marvel Disney brass let them cook, you know?
Yeah.
And there was that, you know, the stuff in which for Doctor Strange, you know, Sam Raimi and some of the interviews kind of indicates like you don't get a lot of leeway from the big bosses at the MCU. So I think the best we can hope for is we get some really interesting writers and directors who have the room to do some cool shit. So, yeah. Damien said we've reached irony saturation. Totally see what you're saying there. Corinne said, I agree. It feels kind of like we're heading towards the comic cheesiness of the 80s, which unfortunately is what's popular right now. Everything cycles back, you know? Vox says, Taika walks the line well. With Ragnarok, he was basically making Flash Gordon 1980, and he's good at that. Seba Pimp said, greetings from Poland. I'm wondering how live streams are working out. I remember you mentioned there is something riding on this from your mother company. Yeah, here's how I think live streams are working out. It's fun. We enjoy doing them. My favorite part of doing the live here, I'll do a quick check-in on, this is like week 5 or 6, 4. Best part about this live stream is the community of folks who have been showing up every week. I feel now like there's people in the chat who I know things about you. You know things about me. I feel like we have really cool chats here. And the vibe of the chat is so good. I feel like even when we're disagreeing on stuff, it's just done in a fun way. And I think that's really cool and unique. A lot of streams, you look at the chat and it's just anarchy and people being dicks. And I feel like that's not what we're doing. So I think that's going really great. I think we want to keep growing it. And Seba Pimp, to sort of, I guess, wrap up answering your question. And we're still figuring out what works, what do people like, what's fun, all that sort of stuff. So I feel like that's where we're at right now. And Alonzo, you just don't like this stuff. That's okay. Corey signed up for the Discord during the stream. Awesome. I'm excited to chat with you there. Yeah, community's coming for it. Objectively bad, but Michael, isn't all art subjective? I don't know, kind of. Let's see. Sorry, just catching up with the chat. A lot going on. Cody said, speaking of, have you noticed a decline in writing quality season 5 of Rick and Morty? I find you can notice the writer change, especially in the dialogue. I mean, I just think it's hard when you go from a show that has so much editorial and creative control of one small group and you expand that out. I think that Rick and Morty, in my mind, on the most recent season, did some really cool stuff. And I think that the voices of some of the new writers on Rick and Morty shined in a really cool way. But I think it was a little more uneven. And I think that the good thing is, because I know a lot of those writers from the most recent season are sticking around, they're just going to keep tightening that up. So I'm kind of optimistic. Corinne Voigt says, why does stuff cycle back like that? I've been wondering that since I noticed I'm getting old. Curse you, Gen Z. I don't know if anyone has. I mean, there is that kind of. We just have nostalgia cycles.
Yeah, it's nostalgia, and also people are more likely to throw money at something when they already have a proof of concept.
Yeah. And you know what I think there is too? There's the nostalgia cycle thing, and there's a desire for people to retroactively how do I want to phrase this? People want to retroactively ascribe value to the culture that was dominant in their formative years. Meaning that everyone wants to have the feeling of, when I was 13, we had the best movies. We had the best music. It'd be for me, if I was oh, but you guys don't get it. Seeing the original Jurassic Park in the theater while listening to Pearl Jam's album 10 and, whatever it might have been. I don't even know what was on TV. The original Clarissa Explains It All. Or whatever. It is the same way that, people from, I guess, the boomer generation would be you kids don't know anything. We had Woodstock, and I saw Jimi Hendrix and young Bob Dylan and the Grateful Dead, and I went and saw Easy Rider in the movie theater, and yada yada yada. So I think everyone wants
This idea of
their
postmodernism.
generation to be best. Yeah. Yeah, and definitely the postmodernism thing of like picking around, and I think Matt brings up a good point. So I'm just gonna riff off what he said. One of the ways to think about postmodernism is this idea that we can kind of look at culture as a thing that's like already happened. So what our job is to do now is to pick and choose from cultural objects that already exist and like reanimate or play with those cultural objects in new ways, rather than feeling as if we can invent new narrative structures, cultural objects, whatever it might be. So yeah. Wait, Dude Abides just said a thing. I didn't know this existed. He said, your take on the upcoming Winnie the Pooh horror movie. I didn't know that existed.
So Winnie the Pooh
So-
just got out of what is that called? Public domain or into the public domain. So
Oh.
yeah, there's like a whole horror movie that was just ready to go.
That's amazing. That's all I got to say. It's amazing, and I'm excited to learn about it. Joan Job says we're in the 80s mindset because there's some soul-crushing things beyond our control happening all around us, and the escape of cheese is real. I definitely think that's true. If you look at pop culture, art, and stuff like that, when reality gets real bad, art can sometimes get real light, because when everything around us sucks, we don't want to be reminded of that. It's why most of the shows and movies that dealt with the pandemic have not been good, because why do we want to be reminded of that? So I think there's a point to what you are saying there. And Christopher says, to quote Bo Burnham, they'll stop beating this dead horse when it stops spitting out money. Yes. And I will only say that the past couple of days, one of the, I would say we probably all have heard the song from Bo Burnham's Inside, Funny Feeling. It's been that song has been very unfortunately appropriate the last day or two, and it sucks that it's been appropriate. But that's all I'll say. And 40-year-old geek said it's because guys who grew up in the 80s are in charge now, of course, and we all want to be like, what we did was cool. Catching up with the chat. Let's see.
I also think nerd culture is so much more widely accepted right now.
Yeah.
That a lot of the stuff that was not cool at all back then is suddenly like someone said, the people that did that were in charge. I mean, Jon Favreau, who's like the guy behind a lot of Star Wars and Marvel stuff. A lot of his like storytelling expertise came from playing Dungeons and Dragons in like the late 80s.
Yeah. Well, and Vox makes this point. He said that your musical taste formalizes around 13. There's some psychology that backs it up. Yeah. I mean, there was something once I read that most people don't listen to any new music after the age of like 27, which is so horrifying.
I mean, I'm around that age and I get that.
Yeah. But I would say that, okay, I'm going to get on Michael's soapbox corner. That's why it's part of our job as human individuals to challenge ourselves with the consumption of new forms of art and media. And I think that, I think that's the thing we should do. I think that's what you should always like. So for example, I have a couple friends who really like the movies of David Cronenberg. I've never been a big Cronenberg guy because spooky stuff freaks me out, as does body horror. But I've been watching the movies with them, trying to like challenge myself a little bit, watch some stuff that I wouldn't normally watch. I think sometimes listening to music you wouldn't normally listen to, or asking friends for recommendations, even if you don't intuitively love the stuff, it's just like good for you. It's good for your brain. It's good to read different stuff. So I don't know. That would be
I also think like, especially
my
music
thought.
right now, so much of it is based on prior music that if you just like look at whatever the top 10 songs you're looking at right now, just look at the sample. Most of the stuff is sampled now, or at least the melody is taken from an earlier song. Just look at that and you'll see that music hasn't changed too much.
Yeah. So that's a real thing. I want to check out another video on electric cars. This is from the Gravel Institute, which makes some cool stuff. I'm pretty sure, hopefully I don't speak out of class here. Alec Opperman, who used to work with us at Wisecrack and was our head of editorial for a while, did some work for the Gravel Institute. So they do cool stuff. Hari Nake says, how do we as a society deal with the feeling of life being a Xerox of a Xerox in reference to things happening around us? Like, shootings have become so common. We've been desensitized. Thoughts? I mean, I think it's just like that. I don't know. Like, I think that we retreat when things get overwhelming. And I think that, and I also think too, like, creating new stuff is hard, right? Think about it from a movie perspective. If you're a young filmmaker, think about how hard it would be to get an original new idea made. All the steps you'd have to go through to really get something original made. I mean, that's why like Everything Everywhere All at Once is like it's phenomenally rare that a movie like that gets made. If you're like a younger musician, I mean, like, how hard is it to do something really new and make it happen? And at the level of ideas, like whether it's politics or philosophy or literature, how hard is it to put some new ideas out there that really get traction? And then I guess there's always that question too of like, why don't we want to be challenged? Because if we're challenged, we might have to acknowledge that we were wrong. I know I've already referenced Socrates on this stream, but like, why did they kill Socrates, right? Because he corrupted the youth. But what was he really doing? He was making people question themselves and dominant values in society that would lead people to potentially questioning the foundational truths that order society. And maybe that would lead them to realizing that, to be crass, shit kind of sucks. And I think that new art and new ways of thinking can do that for us. But like, it's hard to do that. I think we've referenced Bo Burnham a couple times in the chat. I think there's levels at which watching something like Inside is difficult. And it's difficult. I mean, it's funny at times, but like there's things that happen in that special that you can't help but reflect back onto yourself and think like, oh, it is like that. I do that sometimes. I think like that. And then you have to ask those questions. So yeah, I don't know. Not much more to say than that. Let's see. Rand King is a musician, so it doesn't apply to you. Hell yeah. Let's see. GD Nimrod said, "Is I hype for the new Nolan movie?" Maybe. I'm iffy on Nolan. Yeah, I don't know. It just sounds like a lot. I don't know. Nolan. The only thing I like about Nolan is he also likes a diner I like a lot. So I saw him there with his kids once, and I was like, okay, Nolan, you're all right. Christopher says, I love newer art and music. It seems like storytelling is getting so much better, and niche genres popping up more. And love Death and Robots. It's really cool to see artists go full tilt. Hell yeah. Ooh, Kaladin, birthday. Happy birthday. That's amazing. Good to see you here for that. Really appreciate you spending any time with us on your birthday. Vox Popcast says, there's also a thing where artists don't want to do new stuff sometimes. You want to do the thing that made you fall in love with art. Spielberg said his fondest dream was to make West Side Story. Yeah, that's also a hard thing. Yeah, Vox says, like Macbeth with Denzel Washington was brilliant, but it was just Macbeth, 500-year-old Macbeth, but super well done. Yeah, because some stuff is just really good like that. Cool, let's check out this video. Are we good to start this one, Producer Matt?
Yep, all set.
Cool. Also, let us know in the chat if you have an electric car as we watch this. Matt, do you have an electric car or a hybrid?
I do not, and I really wish I did right now. I mean, yeah, right now, maybe after we watch this, maybe not.
Let's see. I don't have an electric car. I want one. There is the irony with electric cars where it's like, get this, it's good for the environment, it's good to have, but they're so expensive to have. So let's see what happens on this video on the Gravel Institute channel. I love their graphics. It's a nice color palette they use.
When people talk about ways to reduce carbon emissions, there's one thing that you probably hear a lot: electric cars.
There'll be a day in America where most cars are electric.
President Biden has made investing in electric vehicles a major focus.
We're looking at what could be a game changer: electric vehicles, a whole new era of driving.
But when it comes to the environment, there's something that might surprise you. Electric cars are not really all they're cracked up to be.
What?
I think that electrification is a really important piece of reducing.
What a name, by the way. Paris Marx. I just wonder, this is not a judgment of that journalist, did you give your, I just want to know if that's a government name, because, well, famously, Karl Marx wrote the Paris manuscripts. And then also, if you're a journalist and you're like a political journalist and your last name's Marx, then people quote you as like Marx said. Just crazy. I mean, have you ever known anyone in life with the last name Marx, producer Matt?
Not spelled that way. I've known someone who has Maraks.
Yeah, I've never known an MRX. Ooh, Buddha in the chat says, don't we have carbon absorption facilities? You should check out, we have a video on the Wisecrack channel, Wisecrack Labs, and it's on carbon capture. Helen hosted it. I helped write it. And we interviewed one of the leading scientists around this stuff, a guy who worked on the Sanders presidential campaign as a climate analysis and who worked on the Green New Deal as well. So I would just say we have like a pretty cool video on that. But let's keep on. Oh, and Jake Byrne, who I imagine popped in recently, covering everything everywhere soon. Yeah, baby. We just did a video on it. We recorded it. It's going to come out soon. Vox says Richard Marx. Yeah. Richard Marx is the singer, right? And he sang kind of like 80s ballads, I think. Do you know that, producer Matt?
No. A lot of music.
Yeah.
My music knowledge kind of ends around like 95.
Yeah. I think Richard Marx. Yeah, I think that's what he did. Let's get back to Paris Marx. This is a cool name.
The total of the transportation system, but our focus right now is almost exclusively on electric vehicles, and I think that's a problem. You know, when we think about electric vehicles, we think about tailpipe emissions, right? So the vehicle itself is not burning fossil fuels. There's not a big gas tank attached to it, so there's nothing coming out of, you know, the tailpipe to then go up into the atmosphere, right? But that's not actually a full picture of the life cycle emissions of an automobile or of an electric vehicle, you know, in particular.
This is Paris Marx. He's a writer and the author of this book.
I mean, that's just so good too. If you write a book, also that book sounds great. I kind of want to read this. Road to Nowhere, what Silicon Valley Gets Wrong About the Future of Transportation, Paris Marx. Because then, yeah, you get to be like, oh, did you read Marx's new book? What? Marx has a new book?
He's still writing?
What? That's just really cool. It's really cool. We were talking about this when filming a video yesterday. So in the Everything Everywhere All at Once video, I do talk about a lot of French philosophers, and me and one of our producers, Olivia, were talking about how philosophers you can't, for example, I was never destined to be like a very serious, important philosopher because I have a very just straightforward name. You know, Michael Burns isn't like a world historical figure name. You know, it's not a big philosopher's name. All the philosophers, you know, they have names that it's like, that makes sense. That's what you are. And I think if your name is Paris Marx, you're going to do something interesting, you know?
Yeah, like
you're not gonna...
Pharaoh. You're like, oh yeah, how is this guy not going to be a celebrity?
Yeah. PS4 customer says the Marx Brothers from classic Hollywood. Of course. There was, when I was a small child, I think that I literally did think that the Marx Brothers were somehow related to Karl Marx.
Karl was like the neglected third child.
I really was like, oh, that's cool that like their dad was, or grandpa was Karl Marx, and like the kids are these like cool comedy guys. That's great.
Which is about competing visions for the future of transportation. Marx is saying that cars have two types of emissions. Tailpipe, the stuff that comes from driving the car around, and lifetime, the stuff that comes from manufacturing the car. So electric cars have relatively low tailpipe emissions. Nothing comes out when you're driving around. But you do need to recharge the car, so pollution from power plants supplying that energy is increased. The hope, however, is that as the energy mix gets cleaner over time, those emissions will diminish. But that is not the only environmental complication. A much bigger one, in fact, has to do with how electric vehicles are manufactured.
Satyasha, we'll check out that video. I don't know if we're going to do it on the stream right now, and I'm just going to be honest with you because I don't want you to be disappointed with us. Because we want you to like us. So I don't want to disappoint you, but we might not do it. Yeah, and Christopher says this causes your brain to link Karl Marx name with the last name Marx for sure. That's the thing. But anyone who has a certain last name, you know, it's like if someone's last name is Hendricks, I can't not think about Jimi Hendrix. And anyone named Hendricks, there's a professional baseball player named Kyle Hendricks. It's even spelled differently. but I'm not going to not be able to think of Jimi Hendrix. Or it'd almost be like, let's hear, shout out to the 90s kids here. If someone's name was Cobain, their last name, you're going to think about Kurt Cobain because he was the first guy with that name to do something crazy. It is what it is. That's a lot of Teslas.
When we think about a fossil fuel vehicle and what goes into the conventional vehicles that we use, we recognize that there's this big oil industry that is extracting, all these barrels of oil from around the world that's causing human consequences, that's having environmental consequences. But often when we think of the electric vehicle, we don't think of that supply chain. We don't think about what actually goes into it because, again, we don't, pump gas.
I think that's true. It's not something I think about and people talk about as much as with cars, we kind of treat them as if like they just get plopped down from heaven and then they're electric so they're good, or they use gas so they're bad. But we don't think about production, but we don't think about production in general, right? Like it's not like when we're on our iPhones or whatever, we're thinking about the Foxconn factory in China with suicide nets outside because the working conditions are so terrible that make our stuff. You know what I mean? I think it's sort of to get Marxist, as we hang out with Paris Marx, it's that sort of consumer alienation from the means of production, that goods show up to us like these magical things, and we're so disconnected from the method of production that we don't even think about that part of things. Or at least I don't normally. Jake Burns says, any takes from old videos of yours on Wisecrack that you disagree with now? Jake, I'm sure there's tons. I can't think of any off the top of my head. Maybe later in this stream, I'll just scroll through our page and I can just be like, oh, I disagree with that. But that's fine. You got to keep thinking.
I just was cutting the Elden Ring video, and then someone who just finished Elden Ring. I don't know when the video came out, but it definitely, like, there's something interesting about Elden Ring's story and like the way that the game is set up to where it almost forces a community to experience the game outside of the game and create the story as well. And so I think the video on Elden Ring got a lot wrong, but also at the time that it happened, like the community hadn't figured out 1,000 secrets about it, which I thought was really interesting.
Well, and I think like knowledge and interpretation and stuff like that aren't like static.
Totally.
They're always progressing. So I think if anything, if someone said like, do you disagree with any of the videos you made? If I said no, then I would be a dumbass. If I said that. I'll talk about Socrates again. I've done it. This is the third time today. Rule of threes. What made Socrates wise is that he knew he wasn't wise. He was aware of his ignorance. And I think that we have to have that state with all sorts of things. Walter said, what's happening? Well, Walter, we're hanging out. We're currently watching a video about electric cars. Before that, we watched a video on Thor. If you haven't been here before, and yeah, real quick too, we're at the hour mark. For anyone who hasn't been here before, Wisecrack Live, it's a stream. We do it once a week. I'm Michael. I'm here with producer Matt. Reminder as always, follow us on TikTok, check out the videos on YouTube, and think about joining our Patreon if you have $5 to $10 a month to throw down and want to support the channel and get some extra content along the way. Eric Erickson, that's a good name, says, I'm forever resentful of the perpetual cost of having a car, both money-wise and ecologically. I hate it. Last weekend, drove over a piece of glass by accident, tore my tire open, and I had to spend almost $300 total to get a tire replacement and shit. And I don't have that sort of money to just throw around. And even like now with gas prices, like I had to fill up my tank yesterday and was just like, this sucks. It's cost so much money to have a car. Joan Job says, cars are capitalism's most effective debt trap. They sure are. Vox Podcast says, weird thing about academia is you're sort of encouraged to re-examine and expand your previous work. Knowledge grows. So you totally can't disagree with your old stuff. And I respect people more that disagree with themselves than people that never admit they were wrong. I don't respect it when people are like, I've never been wrong. Everyone's wrong. It's like in a relationship, do you want to be with someone who always doubles down and can never be like, oh, I was wrong about that, honey. Okay.
Into the tank in the way that we do with conventional vehicles that most people use right now.
Just look at two of the most important minerals for electric car batteries. Lithium.
I got to point this out. Christopher brings up Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It's one of the best movies ever made about the way in which private interest ruined a public transportation system. Especially if you live in Southern California, it sucks because it's a movie that shows you that we had a robust public transit system in Southern California that was intentionally ruined and devastated because of cars and oils.
Lithium. The extraction process for these materials has serious consequences in the places that they're mined, like water pollution, air pollution, habitat destruction, and ground destabilization.
And like, I don't know, for most of us, like, I don't, like, have you ever been to a lithium mine, Matt?
I have not, and I've never been affected by it directly as far as I know.
Yeah, like these are, again, it's that sort of literal geographic alienation where in certain parts of the world, areas are mined for these resources and they likely have devastating effects in those places. But because we don't see it, we just see the like Tesla dealership. So, yeah.
We've already been warned about the spiraling environmental cost of lithium mining in places like Bolivia or Australia or Tibet. And that's before we get to the social consequences.
The world's biggest tech companies are being sued over child mining debts in the Democratic.
Child mining debt is what I just heard. That's dark. It's real dark. But this is also the problem too. There's the famous quote where like it was right after, so when Jimmy Carter was president, I forget what year he got elected, in 70 something, I don't know. And Carter talked about the lowering of expectations and the turning down of the thermostats as we got like real about the energy crisis. And then Reagan becomes president, and Reagan's all about like limitless possibility and growth. And this is the problem, right? We have this mindset of like limitlessness, not like the cool Bradley Cooper kind where you take a pill and you become good at everything. But it's sort of like we have this constant point of contradiction between this desire for limitless growth and convenience, but then the finitude of natural resources, and the two things don't work well together. And at some point, humanity either has to be like, oh, we just like can't do all the stuff. Maybe we can't all have cars or can't do this or whatever, but we're not going to do that. So
Republic of. They accuse companies like Apple, Google, Dell, Microsoft, and Tesla from benefiting from child labor.
Good call, Kaladin. Unlimited power. As we're about to get a new Star Wars property, I appreciate the quote.
To mine cobalt.
You know, a lot of countries want to almost completely replace their fleets of vehicles. So it's not just continuing to operate these mines that already exist, it's opening new mines in new places, creating more extraction, and then having more environmental and human consequences that come of that. And so that's a serious problem that, you know, doesn't get that considered as much when we just talk about zero emission vehicles and how great these are for the environment.
So because of the extraction process for those minerals, in terms of lifetime emissions, the situation is actually really bad.
Okay, I think we're about to compare two lines. Here, let's play a game. I'm gonna say a line from a song, and I want someone to tell me who said it and on what song. Okay, the line is, "What you think I rap for to push a fucking RAV4." Again, the rap lyric is, and I'm pretty sure I'm getting this right, "What you think I rap for to push a fucking RAV4." The first person to correctly state the artist and song wins the prize of me saying that you won, I guess. And hopefully that can be enough. But now let's get back to the video, and I guess we're going to compare these two. And of course, we all think the Tesla's going to be better. Of course we all think that. So let's see.
Before hitting the road, a Tesla Model 3 has 65% more emissions than a Toyota RAV4. That's why.
Yep, Rand King got that immediately. Kanye West, run this town. And you know, that was a rough lyric for RAV4 owners, because Kanye clearly implied that a RAV4 was an inadequate vehicle. There's a rap song. Oh, who is it? I might get this wrong. It's either on an Open Mike Eagle or a Quelle Chris album. And Hannibal Buress, the comedian, has a verse on it where he makes fun of like a Toyota Yaris, and then he stops to explain that actually it's not bad, and if that's the car you can afford, that's a reasonable option, and you should be proud of yourself. I really appreciated that. Yeah, someone already got it. And the line again was, "What do you think I rap for to push a fucking RAV4?"
An electric car needs a lot in order to make environmental sense. Because its tailpipe emissions are 34% lower than the RAV4, eventually it will break even and have better emissions than the gas-powered car if driven enough. About 20,600 miles.
Okay, I'll say this, like,
it's not that many miles.
Yeah, I mean, if it's gonna break even at 26,000 miles, I don't know what the average.
Average is about 10 to 12,000 miles a year. Maybe
Yeah,
even 15 if you're driving a lot.
yeah. Oh yeah, Rian King did not Google that. He got that very quickly, so I'm not worried about that. Pablo, I know that he's saying he doesn't want an adequate chip, but I'm just saying if I'm a RAV4 driver, I'm like Kanye. What did I ever do to hurt you? But yeah, I don't know. I think like yeah. So we're gonna see where this video goes. But at this point, most people put more miles than that on their car. So I don't know. The last car I had, I had that son of a bitch at like 120,000 miles. So yeah. Okay. Right now I'm like, I don't know. I don't know.
Miles. So these two problems, electric recharging and mineral extraction, are two big reasons why even system-wide adoption of
Yeah, and Satyasha brings up the important point. The problem is cars themselves, not whether it's gas or electric. Yeah, the problem is that we're so obsessed with like individualism that rather than investing resources into large-scale public transportation systems that alleviate the need for so many cars, we're just continuing to double down on cars themselves. It's
Yeah,
pretty silly.
electric
I
cars
need to
really
read up
have
on like when there was what was right after the Great Depression? Was that when the New Deal was? Just this idea of like a lot of public spending to like stimulate like a generational change. I forget again. I forget where I was reading this. I need to start notating this stuff. But it was like the idea of like water desalination, right? Like it's something that everyone's like, oh, it's so expensive to do, but it's like, well, yes, but the alternative is what? Like draining rivers? Like, is that over a long period of time? Like,
Yeah.
when do we stop prioritizing like saving money?
Yeah. No, it's real. Kaladin asked, "Are you going to do a video on gun laws in my country, the EU? The law is much more strict even for hunting." So I think we're going to do a video. We're thinking about this. I think we're having a meeting about it today. Kind of want to talk about, and we want to do this subtly and carefully, but we do want to talk about why America is so violent. What makes this country lean towards that sort of stuff. So I don't want to get too into that right now, though. But I think we are going to work on something along those lines.
a big impact on emissions models.
Like, I'm not saying that an electric vehicle is worse than a fossil fuel vehicle. It's often the case that the electric vehicle will still be cleaner when you look at the life cycle emissions.
Okay. He admitted. Christopher Pierce says MIT has a really good study that shows at any given time around 96% of cars are parked just sitting, not being used. I agree that.
But
I agree that. Jesus, Burns. I agree with
the key
that.
thing is that often it's not as much of a reduction as we think it is.
In 2014, a study was published in the journal Environmental Science and Technology. The study found that even in the very optimistic scenario that 42% of all cars on the road are electric or hybrid by 2050, compared to about 1% in 2020, there likely would not be a major decrease in emissions. So if electric cars are not all they're cracked,
it's just the ugliest car in the world. The Tesla tank thing. It's just like,
truck.
Speaking of Kanye, it's like something Kanye would design. It's just so brutalist.
It looks like something you would drive on the moon.
Yeah. I don't know. But let's see. Penny Waldrop says, if you're really going to talk about why Americans are violent, you really need to hear some Matt Christman before diving in. Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a full Christman head. I'm familiar with Mr. Christman and many of his thoughts. So that's a Penny. I appreciate that. That is a good recommendation.
Up to be environmentally, why are they so famous?
Oh yeah, and then Satyasa brings up a good point that, and I don't know the exact study, but I'm pretty sure you're right here. Now, whenever they make new highways, they're just as trafficy. I think Southern California is a good example of that. Atlanta is a good example of that. Can't really get away from it.
There's a lot of extraction that goes into creating electric vehicles because you need all the minerals for all the batteries for all those individual vehicles, and even more if we're talking about SUVs and trucks. And so, that creates jobs, that creates value for companies, that fuels the economy. And then when it comes to actually creating all of those vehicles, that creates manufacturing jobs, which are particularly valued in our society. Also looks good when you're talking about an electorate to show the kind of jobs that you're creating, and looks good when you think about economic growth figures, GDP, things like that.
You're going to be transitioned to clean electric vehicles and hydrogen vehicles right here in the United States of America by American workers with American products.
He always sounds a little drunk. And I know we're not here to talk politics. We're not here to talk about Joseph R. Biden, but he just always talks like he's a little drunk. And I have a lot of older relatives who are always a little drunk. And he just reminds me of people who are a little drunk.
And, that goes back to the very early days of promoting automobility itself, and why there were so many interests that were backing, pushing cities and governments to embrace the automobile over other
Roger Rabbit stuff, guys. We gotta read the history. Roger Rabbit stuff.
Forms of transportation.
So the problem is not the type of car. The problem is the car itself and the entire infrastructure, the highways and freeways, the suburbs, the spread out shopping centers that are built around the personal vehicle. The problem is car dependency.
If you need to drive everywhere you need to go, then obviously that requires a lot more energy than if you were just able to walk or bike or something like that, because where the place that you're looking to go is so much closer.
Yeah, I'd be curious too. I know that people in the chat are from around the world, but it is wild how there are, I think sometimes with the American mind really struggles with the idea that you can live a place where you don't need a car. But I at least know I used to live in England, and even in medium-sized cities there, it was not hard to live without a car. I rarely felt like I desperately needed a car. And normally there was always options between trains, light rails, and buses to get everywhere pretty easily. And because so many people use public transportation, the roads weren't as clogged. And I just think for a lot of the world, it's like that.
Especially
so I'm curious in the
Los
chat
Angeles,
where people are.
Go ahead. Having a car feels very isolating sometimes, because you're just in your car, and then you're at home, or then you're at your job, or you're working from home, and it's you just don't see people.
Yeah, I mean, I used to really so before I lived in Los Angeles, I lived in Bristol, England, and I used to love I don't know, I would walk from the flat that I lived in through my neighborhood to catch a bus, and I would wait for the bus and get on and look out the window and be around other people and get to my work. And other days I would walk into the city center and it was nice. You walk for 20 or 30 minutes, you see what's going on. There's times that via walking, you run into someone, you meet someone, you notice a shop you hadn't seen before. Maybe there's a movie playing you didn't know about. You wander into a record store and find something really cool. You discover the coffee shop you always wish you knew about but didn't know existed. And yeah, your point's completely correct, Matt. It creates an isolation and alienation such that we only experience the world in an intentional way. And there's not a lot of room for fun and happy accidents. So yeah, Pablo says, I'm in California, and right now I live near a corner store and a grocery store. It's awesome. Yeah, living near stuff you can walk to rules. It rules. Also, you get exercise. And Americans are always like, I went to Italy or France, and those people just eat all the time. How are they skinnier than us? And it's because they walk places.
Yeah. There was this commercial going around Reddit a couple days ago. It was some Toyota or Hyundai car commercial. And it was basically just showing people not in cars, but doing things that have cars. And if you just cut out the ad at the end of their car, it seems like the biggest anti-car ad ever. It's just so much wasted space.
Yeah. It's crazy. Amari said, I would love to live somewhere I could just walk everywhere. Monica says, I try to say good things about Colombia, but Bogota's traffic is the worst in the world. Joan Job says, the guy with the YouTube channel, Not Just Bikes, lives in my city in Canada and often uses it as a comparison for his current, more walkable city in Europe, and I'm jealous. Yeah, guys, walking rules. And then I think Satyasha said this earlier. Also, walking is good for you. It's good for our mental health to walk around. This is a great thing to do. Okay, let's get back to this.
Than what it would be in a suburban kind of environment.
A significant increase in people taking the bus or the subway or the train would do much more to reduce emissions than replacing every gas car with an electric one. More public transit requires real investment, but it's not impossible.
The total emissions that are produced by that are so much lower than if everyone is driving their own vehicle or even their own electric vehicle, because the battery minerals required are so much less, the production is so much less, and that does require rethinking the way that we construct communities.
We need to redesign the places where people live and work to make commutes.
That dichotomy too between dense and sprawl. I mostly grew up in the suburbs. I don't know. I think it sucks. Like, everything's so spaced out. It's hard to walk anywhere. I don't know. The first half of my life, I basically exclusively lived in suburbs. The second half of my life, I mostly lived in cities. I wish everything was either city or country. Fuck the suburbs. They're terrible. I don't know. Producer Matt, if you largely, when you were growing up, did you live in the suburbs?
I grew up in the sprawl. I would say some of my best memories are spent late night hanging out with friends in a parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
However,
oh my God, yeah.
But I don't think that's like I'm not going to be like, I cannot wait for my kids to hang out in parking lots. Like, you were hanging out there because there was no other stimulus around. You kind of just had to figure it out.
My whole teen years, just like parking lots, a mall parking lot, a parking lot outside of a Steak and Shake or another like fast food restaurant. And
you can still have that in a city.
Yeah. And to be clear, you can still have wherever you live, you can grow up, you can have fun, but there's just something like my partner grew up in a city. And sometimes when I, talk to her and her friends about their experiences growing up, like, it does sound a little more fun that they could like get on public transportation and go to a different neighborhood and see cool movies or art or go to parks or just like do stuff that would have felt
that coastal elite behavior.
Well, yeah. Well, in fairness, they were third coastal elites in Chicago. So, Midwestern coastal elites. But yeah. Pablo says the mental health benefits of zoning out on a walk are so underrated. Yeah, another corny thing. We've talked about this a little bit. We talked about how we should listen to new things and watch art. Go on walks, friends. Let's just go on walks. Balance says trams, the best electrical vehicles. I love a tram. I love a tram so much. Paul Wallstrom says, I wish suburban bike lanes felt safe in Dallas, Fort Worth. I'd use them more often. Yeah, in LA, even where there are bike lanes, they don't feel safe. There's potholes everywhere. People drive like fucking psychopaths. So it's like we want to encourage people to ride bikes, but we don't even make safe.
I know a couple people that work in like that sector of government trying to figure out, specifically like Culver City, trying to figure out how to increase bike lanes. And it's the classic problem of the city planners don't see enough use of bikers, so they don't see enough need, but there's not enough use because it's dangerous, so people don't use it.
Yeah, that's why I don't ride a bike in the city, because I don't want to die. Not to be crass. Christopher said, fondest memories of my dad, we'd wake up at 3 a.m, go up in a hill and watch a meteor shower. Most we count as 473.
Yeah,
legitimately beautiful, Christopher. I feel like I could almost cry thinking about that. That's awesome.
And Pablo has a good point.
Wow.
If there wasn't a parking lot, it could be a field or a hill, and I wish it was.
If only there was a song about this, a song about how they had paved paradise and put up a parking lot. It could kind of have a catchy beat, maybe a little, ooh, ma, ma, ma. That's a song, right, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely.
Making sure my bit was landing at all. I think it's a Joni Mitchell song. But yeah, cool. Let's get back to this so I don't sing the song. Matt, it would have been better off for you to really just like stonewall me and see how much you could push me to start singing the song to you.
I was thinking maybe it was like an Ed Sheeran song or like a Billie Eilish song.
Oh boy.
It's shorter, much more walking, and to massively expand the least carbon intensive option around, which is public transportation. 30 people on a bus or a subway or a train is a lot more efficient than 30 people driving their own cars, whether they're electric or not.
Oh, there we go.
How much?
Wow,
do you
and this
think,
video is made possible by patrons.
Oh,
Speaking of
interesting.
patrons, check
Interesting.
out Wisecrack's Patreon.
How
Go
much do
ahead.
you think you could tie into, like, the idea of classism in America with, like, the need for cars? Because even in LA, like, you go to
Yeah.
some parts of the city, it's all Beamers and Mercedes and Porsches, and other parts are just like, it's embarrassing to walk in this city.
It is. I think there's a few neighborhoods that are pretty walkable, but yeah, past that. Also, I feel like Christopher just made a really good, like, multi-layered reference when he said Mr. Jones might show up, which I think is referring to the fact that the Counting Crows, who made the song Mr. Jones, famously covered um, the Put Up a Parking Lot song, which I think is called Big Yellow Taxi Cab. So, Christopher, great job. Nathanato said I had a 5-minute walk to work, but I never did it because there's a 4-lane road in front of my workplace. Damn. Vox Popcast says Middle America problems. We have lots of bike lanes here in Pittsburgh, PA. I love Pittsburgh. I spent a summer in Pittsburgh. I really enjoyed it. But it's also very hilly, so not as conducive to the casual travelers other places. Slashing Robin has an AMA in 30 minutes, so drop it in for a bit. We're glad to see you for a bit. Really appreciate it. Ernesto said today's topic. Well, right now we've been talking about a video from the Gravel Institute about electric cars and their impact on the environment. Before that, we talked about Thor. You know, we're just talking about other stuff. And yeah, Vox Podcast also brings up bad weather shifts. Yeah. It's just like cars just aren't good. It just sucks, but they're just not. They're just not. I realized we never did slaps and chaps at the top. For those who know this, Kwame said, "What got you into Wisecrack?" I'll try to answer this really quickly. When I first moved to Los Angeles, I had a mutual Austin Smith, former host of Show Me the Meaning. I went to grad school with him. He knew a guy named Todd. That's one of the people that used to run Wisecrack. He said, you should meet my friend Michael. He does philosophy and he does comedy stuff, and he might be a good fit for you guys. I started doing some freelance writing for Wisecrack probably in 2017. Did that on and off for a bit. Started doing a little bit of like drop-in hosting after that and some podcast stuff. Stepped away for a while when I had a job that took up a bunch of my time. And then I started full-time at Wisecrack almost exactly 2 years ago. But that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So there you go. Oh, Southern Illinois. Yes, Southern Illinois does have a lot of seasons. Shouts to the state of Illinois. Yeah, but we never did slaps and chaps, which is a thing we've done the last couple streams. Slaps and chaps is a holdover from a show called Culture Binge, where we talk about things that either slap, we're excited about, we like them, or that chap, we don't like them, they're bad. To put producer Matt on the spot, do you have any slaps and chaps this week? Anything that comes to mind?
I
If
will
not, no
say
worries, no pressure.
A slap that's currently still happening is this dinosaur show on Apple TV. Is just
What?
like bringing me back to being 13 in my dinosaur phase. But it's basically like this new, I forget what it's called. My memory is very bad today. It's just like another like dinosaur series narrated by David Attenborough. But I was watching it.
Oh, Attenborough and dinosaurs?
Yeah.
Shit.
Apple TV. I was watching it and I was like, I feel like we're doing the T-Rex dirty with these tiny little arms. That can't be real. It just can't be real.
Yeah. Wow.
Prehistoric Planet. Yeah. But anyway, great show if you're into it. It's like, I think it's like a 5-part series that ends maybe Saturday. But it's fantastic.
Awesome. That's amazing. Everyone should check that out. I think I have a slap, and my slap is a podcast that's existed, but I only started listening to it this week. Matt, have you heard of the podcast Bandsplain?
Is this no? Is it anything like Song Exploder?
No. So Bandsplain is a podcast on Spotify. And, we might not like Spotify. It's fine. I get it. The cool thing about it, though, because it's on Spotify, they're allowed to use music. Premise of the podcast is someone comes on. There's a host. Her name's Yasi something. A guest comes on, often like a writer, a music critic, someone like that. And they talk about one band, and they literally go through like the whole history of that band. They listen to songs from all of the records, talk about the history. And in some instances, for example, they have an episode on pavement and it's 5 hours long. That might sound crazy, but you can split it up over a few days. But it's really cool if you just want a really, really big deep dive into a band or a music artist where you can also listen to all the songs as you go. And it's cool because I've only listened to a few of them thus far, but if it's a band you're already into, it's cool because you are like learning, you're kind of getting to dive into something you already like. And if it's something you don't know about yet, you just learn a ton and get to listen to the songs along the way. So
I think if
that
you
is
like
my
that,
slap.
you should look into the Dissect podcast.
Oh, I like that podcast.
You already know it.
I haven't listened to every season, but yeah. What are they on now? Are they have a current season?
I haven't listened to it since, I want to say, the Kendrick Lamar season.
Yeah,
but
because
don't
I
know if
listened
they
to a
did
Kendrick
more.
Lamar season. I listened to the Childish Gambino season.
Yeah, there was a Frank Ocean season. I
Well,
don't
listen to
know
some
if
of
they
that,
did
yeah.
Mac Miller yet, but anyway.
The guy's voice is really funny.
Yeah.
He's like, and on this song, Kendrick's referring to Bloods and Crips. These are traditional gangs in South Los Angeles. It's like, cool, man.
It's like peak Vice.
Yeah, it's just so calming. Paul has some slaps. Getting into home gardening, chaps, learning how bad you are at watering. That's real. Moises said prehistoric planet. Slashing Robin said Will Smith slaps too soon. Just definitely not too soon. People talking about dinosaurs. Chaps, this is from Joan Jobs. Chaps was watching Jurassic Park, and at one point John Hammond says, the voice you're hearing is Richard Kiley. We spared no expenses. Why not David Attenborough? His bro. Let's see. Cody Harris says, Wisecrack has never done a video that mentioned The Wire or The Sopranos. Is that true?
I couldn't answer that.
Fuck. Yeah, The Wire's the best show ever. So I agree with you there. Pablo says, Love, Death, and Robot Season 3 slaps. My struggles to beat Hollow Knights and my chaps. Satyasya says, slaps, human potential. Wow. Chaps, what we're doing with it. Damn. Joan brought up The Wire, Sopranos, Breaking Bad, because those are the best shows ever. Let's see. Okay, cool. Yeah, okay, so let's think. Any chaps? Do you have a chap that comes to mind, Producer Matt?
Come back, because I know I had one.
Yeah.
And
let's see. I can try to come up with one if you can. Okay, I feel like I have had slaps or chaps related to Chipotle so many times. Wait, did I already do my chap about how Chipotle uses too much salt?
You brought it up briefly last week.
I'm kind of obsessed with this these days. Chipotle, if you're watching, I assume the CEO of Chipotle watches this stream regularly. You just use too much salt in your food. Use a little less salt. People can always add salt, but you can't take it out. Use less salt. Okay, that was one of my chaps. I'm trying to think if I have another chap. I'll say a chap about something good. Speaking of The Wire, David Simon's new show on HBO, We Own This City. My chap is that it's only 6 episodes because it rules. It's so good. Vox Popcast, chaps got to leave early because of meeting 5-minute slaps. Meeting could lead to some good stuff. Hell yes. Everyone right now, channel your energy to Vox Popcast in Pittsburgh. Channel your energy so that the meeting he's about to be in leads to some good stuff. On the count of 3, we're all going to channel that energy. 1, 2, 3, go. Cool. Everything's going to go well. If now stuff goes really bad, it means that we're all evil and accidentally channeled bad energy, but hopefully the opposite happens. Rian King says, slaps, Dance Gavin Dance, chaps, death of their bassist. I feel, I don't really know. Is that a band? I assume that's a band, obviously, because they have a bassist. Christopher Pierce, a little metaphysical. I like it. Slaps, realizing the Godhead exists within all. Chaps, watching many worship the Godhead as an external being. And Moises just dropped some lightning bolts. That's cool too. Did you think of a chap, Matt?
It's a
you don't have to.
conflicted
You don't have
chap.
to.
Well, it's not really a chap, but it's also not a slap. I finished Elden Ring. I think Moises was asking about it. I finished the game, and the whole time I was finishing it, I was really excited to do the New Game Plus, which is basically you play it again, but you're just stronger. And I've been playing it, and it's just not the same. So I'm kind of like, not mourning, but I'm like nostalgic for my first playthrough, even though like the game is really good at keeping you in just kind of like a low level sense of stress. Imagine like being a deer in a forest and there's a wolf howling. That's kind of how I felt for the entire experience.
Ooh.
But
I don't like that. It sounds horrible.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to play it again for a little while because it's just sort of like all consuming.
That's real. Pablo with a righteous own of me in the chat. Michael, just make Chipotle at home, bro. It's not hard to make that stuff, and you get enough leftovers, eat whatever you want. Pablo, that's normally what I do. My normal eating routine is making a bunch of stuff. So like, that's what I'm having for lunch today. I normally have some beans, some veggies, some rice. I tend to make salsa a couple times a week. Get it, different types of tortillas. I do a lot of fried sweet potatoes. And then I also tend to always have like greens and tofu and stuff to make more like rice bowls with like Korean sauces and stuff on them. So I need to do that. Sometimes when I'm out and about though, if I'm lazy, Chipotle is just like the easiest place to eat lunch for less than $10 and get vegan or vegetarian stuff. Eric Slap got some homemade chicken fingers for lunch. That rips. Joan, chaps, not realizing the new Simon shit has come to light. Yeah. It hasn't been promoted that much. I don't know why. Slashing Robin's chaotic neutral. If I channel my energy, who knows what'll happen? Let's see. Cool. So we have a last thing we'll do today. We're going to watch, before we wrap up, we're going to watch the Obi-Wan trailer because the Obi-Wan show comes out tomorrow. A lot of people are pretty out on Star Wars stuff. I think Star Wars, oh yeah, Moises says homemade rice bowls are top tier. Yeah, this is the easiest way to have healthy food for the week. You make a bunch of rice, some veggies and sides, heat it up, you're good to go. Make some good sauces. Yowza. Rain King says slaps. Spent 200 hours meandering through Elden, chaps. Save got wiped out during one of the infamous storm blackouts of Southern Illinois.
That's terrible.
Pablo says get some MSG. Yeah. And Kwame, I have tried Taco Bell. I've eaten Taco Bell more in my life than any human should, and I should probably never eat it again. Sadly. But yeah, so Obi-Wan comes out tomorrow. I have a little bit of hope that it might be okay because Ewan McGregor is great. Yeah, we could have talked this whole time about Star Wars. If you haven't checked out the Vanity Fair feature with Kathleen Kennedy, who runs Star Wars, where she kind of admits that they've just like fucked up so bad. But I'm excited about Obi-Wan, so we will watch the trailer. So we'll maybe, if anyone wants to drop some What Arias, you can as well. So I'll say that now. We'll do the Obi-Wan trailer, and then we'll wrap up. A couple of reminders before we do that. Once again, we are here every Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Normally, you can watch this stream after the fact. You were unable to watch last week's because we watched a TED Talk video with Ethan Hawke, and TED has like a ban on their shit. So I think that we'll see if we get copyright pulled for any of the stuff that we watch today. Also, I feel like we could probably contest the one we got last time and say it was for educational purposes, right? We should have done that.
Yeah. Give it a go.
Yeah, let's maybe, if we still can, maybe we'll do that. But yeah, so normally, wait, the Andor trailer just came out too? Okay. I'm going to ask producer Matt if you can. We'll start Obi-Wan, and maybe if you can find the Andor trailer, if that exists, that would be great. Oshi said, is The Mandalorian good? Yes, it is good. Ray Lomas, what did she admit again? Did they just like fucked up the movies and stuff like that? I don't know. Cool. So I'll cue up the Obi-Wan trailer. Are we on the screen where when I press play, people will see this?
You're good.
Awesome. So yeah, let's check out this Obi-Wan trailer as we start wrapping stuff up. Reminder again as well. Awesome. Rand gonna go put a desk together. Hope it goes well. See you later. Awesome hanging with you. Excited to check out that band. And just a reminder, once again, if you have the money to spare, consider checking out Wisecrack's Patreon. We'll drop the link in the chat again. Let's watch the Obi-Wan trailer for those who haven't seen it.
It's been 10 years. The fight is done. We lost.
Leave us alone, Ben.
When the time comes, he must be trained. Like you trained his
Uncle Owen, in case you don't know, the one who raised Luke. Good luck for him that he gets to be back in the movie.
father.
It's my responsibility.
Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan.
I've loved you always.
There's a thing that swallows you. It holds you together when it's
Oh, we got little Luke. We got little Luke.
tearing you apart. It's terrifying.
There's a lot of flashbacks. Way too many flashbacks to those movies, which we all know sucks. Oh, I'm excited for this Andor trailer then. So we'll cruise through this.
The key to hunting Jedi.
They're coming.
Is patience.
Yeah, I guess we're living in this world where they're trying to kill off the last of the Jedi, and Obi-Wan's trying to evade them, I guess.
They're cowards. They failed you. There is no point in protecting them. Where is Obi-Wan?
The Jedi are all but extinct.
The Jedi Code.
I wonder if we're not going to get to see Obi-Wan use his lightsaber, because if you're hiding as a Jedi, you obviously don't do that. Alonzo says, piss off, Revenge of the Sith rules. I don't know. Revenge of the Sith is probably the most, maybe the most redeemable
non-stop action
movie of the
in those
trilogy.
movies. They don't take a second to breathe. It's just you just get on the ride and then it's over.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Ray brings up the line, the best line, like you trained his father. That is very true. Joan Job says they have me with the cyberpunk look, but I'm so over I'm very over the desert planets, and I'm hoping that part of the trailer indicates we're not just going to be on Tatooine the whole time. Because if I have to spend one more hour on Tatooine, I'm gonna have to go to an outpatient facility. It's bad.
Code is like an itch. He cannot help it.
Stay hidden.
Whoa! I did not know Kumail Nanjiani is in
yeah.
this. Did not know that until just right there. That's interesting. Well, I'm glad that him getting super jacked might work for this as well.
But we will not survive.
You still want Kenobi. He's gone.
Where is he?
Ooh.
I want every bounty hunter to squeeze him.
You can't escape here, Obi-Wan!
I wonder who this is. I don't know. I'm still gonna be optimistic about it. You know, that's how I still feel.
Yeah.
So
let me prep the Andor trailer. I got it.
Whoa, Pablo out here. Your nostalgia blinds you to the truth of the originals. Prequels, originals, sequels. I think the originals are the best. Were we able to find the Andor trailer? Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, let's check this out, and we'll end with this. I'm pretty excited about this one too, if I'm honest. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure Andor is a type of prequel to Rogue One. Paul Wallstrom says Tatooine is just Arizona. Let's be real. Yeah. And Christopher brings up how Kumail got jacked and they didn't. So supposedly in an interview where Kumail got jacked on his own, like Chloe Zhao never asked him to get jacked for the Eternals. And he was just, oh, let me just get jacked. So there you go. And Moises, I agree with you. Rogue One is so good. So much better than people give credit for. Andor is so much prettier than Tatooine. Put me on Andor any day of the week.
They're so proud of themselves, so fat and satisfied.
Okay, Gypsy, thank you for clarifying. Yeah, Andor takes place 5 years before Rogue One. Slacker Dan, howdy, good to see you.
They're everywhere. They're watching me now.
I'm glad we all agree that Rogue One is good. It's the one thing we seem to agree on here.
Soon enough, These days will end.
Oh, we got a Skarsgård.
There will be no rules going forward.
People are standing up. That's what a reckoning sounds like.
Fiona Shaw.
Yeah. This looks pretty. It looks pretty cool. August 31st. I can try to live till then. Is there wait? There's some time left. Is there a stinger? No, just that. Okay.
I'm so excited for that.
Let's go.
I want to see Rogue One before they interfered with it, because there was like a lot of weird cuts, and like Forrest Whitaker obviously had a bigger part than he had in it.
Yeah. I'm gonna drop the most cancelable take ever right now. Okay.
Do it.
This is the last time
Go
anyone will
for it.
probably ever see me on anything, because I'm gonna get so ruthlessly canceled for the take I'm about to give you all. No one's ever gonna see me again after this. Ready? Solo wasn't that bad. Solo's actually a solid movie if you go back and watch it. I'm just gonna say it. I'm saying it.
Solo was
and
a
this
lot
is-
of fun.
Okay, cool. I might be done after this, but that's
Do
that's
you
that.
think that you think it's better because the sequels were just not good?
I don't know. I just liked it because it just told a relatively interesting story. There were some cool people in it. It did some different stuff. It complicated the stakes of the universe in an interesting way. I just thought it was pretty good. Moises, I know I'm done. But if you right now want to lightsaber me through the heart, rewatch Solo if you get a chance. It's just not as bad as we say it is. Oh, and Gypsy's with me too. Awesome. So let's say this. Next week, we'll definitely talk about Obi-Wan. We can try to not spoil it, but 2 episodes are coming out. We're probably going to talk about it next week. So watch that if you want. And in the meantime, again, check out the Patreon if you want. We're putting up some new content on the Patreon. We've got some good new videos coming out. I'm very excited actually about some of the stuff coming out in the next couple weeks. Hopefully you guys will be hyped on some of that. In the meantime, let's end with our What Arias. What Aria is when we let everyone know what we're eating, drinking, reading, what games we're playing, what we're watching, what we're listening to, especially as we go into this weekend. And for those of us in the United States, we get a long weekend, so that's great. So let's do our What Arias. Myself and producer Matt can start. The rest of you can put your What Arias in the chat. My What Aria is kind of similar. I'm still really watching and loving Under the Banner of Heaven, Barry, and We Own the City. I'm going to see Top Gun tomorrow. I'm pretty excited about that. I'm going to start reading the new novel Either Or by Elif Boutman, which I'm really excited about. Been listening to that podcast, Bandsplain. I'm eating wise. I'm gonna prep some veggie bowls this afternoon, so I have some stuff that way. Listening wise, let's think. I was listening this morning to the most recent album by the rapper Homeboy Sandman, and I really enjoyed it. So that's my What Aria. What's your What Arias, producer Matt?
I'm gonna get a breakfast burrito after this.
Oh, sick!
I think I'm going the new Kendrick album. I think the new Kendrick album is gonna take approximately 6 months to really seep in.
Mm-hmm.
So I might do a little listen to that. The new Flume album is. I'm a little conflicted.
Ooh.
All
right.
But
I read a review
like
and the review was also conflicted. So,
what else? I think I'm going to finish Ozark and then this Prehistoric Planet.
Awesome. Let's see. Ernesto says, "What are you smelling?" That I should do more dishes. Let's see. Damien's reading Kant's Critique of Pure Reason. Have fun with that. It can be a little bit of a lot. PS4 customers listening to Death Grips. Gypsy's currently researching for a project on the Red Army prior to World War II, so reading a bunch of Soviet memoirs. That's cool. I wonder, have you read the book October, kind of about that? Paul's finishing Attack on Titan this weekend, watching hockey and basketball playoffs. Yes, I will also be watching basketball playoffs. If you have any more What Arias, drop them in there. While we do that, I really quickly, Matt, can you tell us about the podcast project? Wait, real quick. Nathanatos is reading Spurious by Lars Eier. That's my favorite book ever. I love his trilogy. Read all of them. Let's talk about them. I'm so hype. But I'm going to pause from that hype right now. Producer Matt, tell us about the podcast project you've been working on. And then even if you don't want to, I'm going to ask you to drop a link in the chat for it.
No,
but tell
that's
us about
fine.
it real quick.
It's so we just released this like narrative anthology podcast. A friend of mine, Monisha Dadlani, great writer. We did this during the pandemic, essentially like short one-act plays over podcast format. And we finally released them, and we're working on the next batch of 6. And yeah, it's just like, you know, it's like a series of one acts. If you're into like radio plays, I think you'll be interested in this.
Awesome. And Evan Yee also worked on this, right?
Evan Yee directed the episode that I wrote. That's the final one. We just released that with Sierra Cato is in it as well.
Yeah. Sierra, who was once on the Squanch podcast. So some people might, obviously she's done a lot of cool stuff, but some Wisecrack fans might know her from that.
Yep. And I'm trying to think if anyone else. Riley Anspaugh is going to be in season 2.
Big Riley head.
That's actually what I'm doing this weekend, is editing her episode more.
Oh, amazing.
But yeah, I mean, it's weird when you release like independent stuff on a podcast platform, because like everyone has one, but this is not like a traditional podcast. So yeah, I don't know. People have been liking it, which is really nice and feels really good.
Amazing. Well, so please, Matt, drop a link to that in the chat. Everyone check it out. Like it, subscribe it, all that stuff. I'll go through the chat and we'll wrap up in a second. Moises said, I started reading Kierkegaard, The Matter of Philosophy, Fractured Dialectic. That's a book I wrote. And my brain ain't good enough to process. It's taken some time. That's not true. The ideas in the book are simple. I just overcomplicate them because I was young. Ray Loma says, can you drop some very obscure movie recommendations, Michael? I'll drop one that relates to Lars Eyer's Spurious. I don't know how obscure it is, but Withnail and I. Withnail and I is a relatively obscure movie. I don't think a ton of people have seen it, that I recommend very highly. So check out Withnail and I if you can. It's a British movie. It's a little weird, a little dark, but yeah. Kwame's been watching What If. Pablo says enjoy it. Slashing Robin checking out Love, Death, and Robots. Eric's been diving into rally driving sims and listening to lots of Visigoth. Pablo, F1 in Monaco. Christopher lets us know that as a former Navyman, Top Gun is BS, but it'll probably still be fun. Pablo's listening to new Bad Bunny. Let's see. It was good. The best song is the Mambo Salsa song. Awesome. Well, hopefully, let's see. Oh, seen a Red Watchmen before. Yes, Monica's looking forward to the podcast, as you should be. Is there a Spotify link? I bet you can find it on there as well. Wisecrack should check out Northman. Yeah, I like the Northman. We talked about it a little bit. I think it just wasn't doing well enough to justify being on the channel. Okay, so thank you again. From any updates from Jared? Jared has his own channel. He's doing his own thing right now. You can definitely find it if you just look for it on YouTube. So check it out. Follow his work and see what he's up to there. He's been putting out videos. He's been streaming on Twitch. So if you are thirsty for Jared, he will quench your digital thirst. So this has been Wisecrack Live. Again, we do this every Thursday at this time. It's always me with producer Matt, who makes it all happen. Producer Griffin is also in the ether, overseeing everything from a God's eye view. We're going to have some more guests on soon. Thanks again for hanging out. As always, subscribe to the channel. And if you're interested, and we'll drop one last link to it before we wrap up, please check out Wisecrack's Patreon. Consider joining. We're making a bunch of stuff on there. We think you'll dig it. And again, because I'm not like a slimy business person, the big benefit to us is it's great if we can build it out, make some money off the Patreon so we're less dependent on the YouTube algorithm. And in general, yeah, Joshua Harris put it up there. Doing well and Finn on his channel, so check it out. But yeah, I forgot what I was saying, everyone.
Yeah, I mean,
and you should be able to check out these streams. We have a playlist for past Wisecrack lives. Most of them should be up there. We'll see if we can get the other one back up there. Any last words from you, producer Matt?
If you check out Black Box Radio, great. If you check out Wisecrack's Patreon, even greater.
Yeah, check them all out. So we will be back next week. Everyone have a great weekend. Thanks again for hanging out. And again, appreciate you all. This chat is so much fun. And I just want to thank everyone for bringing such fun, good, smart vibes to the chat. Really makes our days. We will catch you next week. This has been Wisecrack Live. We're signing off.